Yes lads, UFC Fighter Jack Show here. You can catch me on the latest episode of Ace Podcast Nation. Make sure to give them a subscribe on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and looking forward to get back on there soon. Speak to you soon.
Champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 53. We're available video versions at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and you can also get the audio versions at all the usual podcasting platforms. You can also follow the show at Danny Batten FS on Twitter and Instagram. We've got lots of podcasts and interviews with various fighters from various companies. But let's get straight into it because we have a lot to talk about. Joining me as ever is former Cage Warriors champion and, of course, legend of UK MMA, Mr. Danny Batten. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really, really good. And thank goodness we've had a treat of a weekend, not even just with UFC, but with the Trilogy in the Cage Warriors. It's been all go, go, go this weekend.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. There was even a bit of boxing last night as well, which I watched
as well.
This morning.
Yeah.
Unbelievable stuff. But it's good. It's good after we had that period of like no sport and no combat sport, particularly. Like it's good to get back to what feels like a bit of normality. And I'm delighted to say joining us is former UFC fighter, now Bellator bantamweight, and in my opinion, future Bellator champion, Swansea City fan as well, Mr. Brett. Mr. Brett Johns. How goes it, my friend?
I'm good. I've got a massive smile on my face. Obviously, I don't know what's wrong. So all my Cardiff City friends have just gone into hiding. I don't know where they've gone.
Winter, mate, isn't it?
Hibernating. They'd win the world championship of hide and seek at the minute. I can't find them anywhere. No, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Obviously, I watched a lot of fighting last night. But like you said, you kind of take the fighting shows at the minute with it's a luxury at the minute considering what's going on. And we were lucky. I watched a bit of the UFC last night. I watched the Cage Warriors Trilogy, and I also watched obviously Anthony Joshua fighting as well. And it was a cracking Saturday, all fairness.
Yeah, it was quite the Saturday when you include all the football as well. It's a mad one. But I want to start, mate, before we get into all of that. Obviously, a bit earlier this year, not that long ago. In my opinion, a bit of a shock announcement, I guess, that you left the UFC and you moved over to Bellator. A few people surprised. How are you feeling about it? What was behind the decision? That sort of thing.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm quite honest and I'm open as a book about all this because I feel like when it comes to the fighting side of things, you kind of see what's in front of you. It's quite simple to tune on the TV and watch two fighters. And Danny realizes there's the fighting, in my opinion, is like 30% of what actually goes on when it comes to like the training, the contracts, the money talks or whatever. And it does get obviously on top of it. That's not why I signed. If anything, I probably enjoyed more at the start of my career than I have towards like the now point because it's so much more to think about when it comes to, like I said, contracts and sponsorships, and because all of a sudden now it's gone from being a sort of hobby or a thing I thoroughly enjoy to a job now. And the good thing is when I went through that little stint back in 2018 with the two UFC losses against Sterling and Munoz, and then obviously when 2019 without a fight, I think at that time it became a 9-to-5 job for me. I didn't like going to the gym. I'd go to the gym every day. I wouldn't miss a session, but I didn't enjoy doing it. And obviously changing a lot of things up. I changed a lot up at the beginning of this year. And I tell you one thing, it's definitely been the right decision because, all of a sudden now it's turned back into that hobby I thoroughly love and enjoy. And, going into this year, if you told me at the beginning of this year, the first week of January 2020, that everything that would have happened, I would have laughed. You know, I didn't think that any of this happened. But you know, what happened was we got to a position where we were offered a fight on November the 7th against Barcelos, Ronnie Barcelos, which, don't get me wrong, would have been a super tough fight. But they kind of offered the name through, and I said yes straight away. But my contract had run up after the Montel Jackson fight, and I was like, right, okay, well, I don't mind fighting Ronnie Barcelos. This is, you know, don't get me wrong, it's not an easy fight by a long shot, but yeah, we'll take the fight, you know. And we started talking about the negotiation figures, and I had a sum in my head, and they were well off, you know. And when I spoke to my manager, Brian Butler, Sucker Punch, and you know, all fairness to Brian, he bent over backwards to get that deal sorted out, and he just kind of mentioned, well, you're a free agent now, so you can go around and have a look to see what other companies. And the first company that we spoke of was Bellator. You know, obviously, I'm a massive fan of MMA. You know, I've won world titles at like big organizations, but Bellator is the one place where, as a kid growing up, I'm watching a lot of MMA. I remember them big fights with Douglas Lima fighting Ben Saunders, or you know, Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez. I loved watching them fights, and so I think Brian, my manager, sent him a message at 11 o'clock and said, "Look, Brett, I think they'll get back to us within 48 hours." By 11:30, I verbally agreed to deal with Bellator. It was that quick. It was half an hour. We kind of sat through, you know, like I said, and the decision was that easy. You know, it was generally that easy. And Bellator, the figure that I had in my head, Bellator said that figure, and like, for example, like I had a figure in my head, and Bellator went, well, I didn't have to say anything. Bellator just said the figure that I wanted, and I knew we were on the right page then, you know. And like I said, I'm not in this. Believe it or not, when I first started this game, it was I wanted the fast cars, the flash house, you know. I wanted everything, you know, the yachts. But being in this game for so long now, you realize you just want to be happy. If I pay for the house I'm in right now, I guess my career's been successful. And I always say that to any other fighter who's aspiring to be a professional, that if you can get through your whole career and manage to pay for your house, then I feel like you've had a successful career. That's just my personal goal, you know. So when Bellator offered the contract, it was generally easy peasy, you know. It was like, I spoke to Brian. Brian seemed to be happy with everything. I spoke to Mike Hogan at Bellator, who's a super cool guy, and he was cool with everything, and it was just that easy. And to be honest, you know, I'm probably the happiest I've been in my career for a long time now, you know.
Yeah, like me and well, obviously when it came out and the story kind of broke, me and Danny discussed it on the show, and I said, like, I felt, just by the little I'd read, I felt UFC had kind of undervalued you and disrespected you a little bit. And to be clear, that's me saying it. That's not you. That's not Danny. That's me saying it. And I felt like they disrespected you because you lost 2 fights for the whole period you were there, and both those guys are in the top 3.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They weren't just kind of any old fighters. Like they're top of the pile now, and you were come back on a 2-fight win streak, and you were a 3-fight win streak.
No, 2-fight win streak. No, like I said, when I asked for a figure in my head from the UFC, I wasn't asking for over the top. There was a guy, Merab Dashvili, who was 5-2 in the UFC. He's in the top 15.
Yeah.
His 2 losses come by guys who aren't in the top 15. And I asked for the same, not more, you know, not less. I just thought, well, he's 5-2 in the UFC. I'm 5-2 in the UFC. I fought these guys. He's fought them guys. Like, I'd like, you know, the same amount, and they were well off, man. They were like, you know, to put it bluntly, they were about $20,000 off where I wanted to be. And look, at the end of the day, like, as much as I love doing a sport, and it's not for the money side of things, but I just want to create some sort of security for later on in life. And I don't feel like a lot of fighters think that far ahead. I've just got good people around me telling me, look, you need a plan B for when this is all over and done with, and you need things in place now for that. And that's the reason why, you know, like I said, I don't want millions and millions of dollars to fight. I don't get me wrong. If that day comes, I'm not going to say no. Put it that way.
Of course, yeah.
You know? But like, yeah, I just wanted that you know, that security, I guess, you know. And potentially my next ambition outside of fighting is I'm 28 now, 29 in February, and if I can pay my house up before I'm 30, I think that would be a big tick in the bucket list.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Like again, Dan, we talked to Richard and Jack last week on the show,
Yeah,
and we kind of all said that we think you'll be Bellator bantamweight champion probably by the end of next year. That's again that's just the opinion of us, and that's what we kind of discussed. I'm assuming that's the aim for you, Brett. But Danny, what do you make of kind of what Brett said there, and just
Yeah,
generally?
absolutely makes sense what he says. He just sounds like he's just got a more mature head on his shoulders than many others. Not to criticise anyone, but so many youngsters do get sort of like blinded by their visions of expectations. But you've got to make solid plans and consolidate things financially. Of course, you have. And the nice thing that I'm hearing is he's got a clear path and he made strong decisions. He clearly doesn't regret them. So yeah, all the best to Brett. And I actually think he ain't even done with UFC. Briefly, what you just said about you think he's going to become Bellator champion. I also think he will, and I think he'll then be back over to UFC for considerable more money. I really do think that's what's going to happen. So I think it's a good decision to do what he's doing. And the good thing is, he's not left on bad terms with UFC. Become a free agent. He put his little feelers about, and something better come along. He's taken that, and I think he'll be returning to UFC in the next few years.
The thing is, as well, is like you don't. Sometimes there's that saying in there: you don't always miss things until they're gone. And like Brett, if you go and you go and dominate the bantamweight division in Bellator for a couple of years, I'm sure the UFC will, they'll take notice of that. I think anyone who thinks that they don't take any notice of other companies isn't paying attention. You only have to look at some of the, Michael Chandler's recently moved that made that jump. There's plenty of fighters over the years who've made the jump either way. So I think it'll be interesting, mate. I'm really looking forward to seeing your Bellator debut. Have you got anything kind of a date in mind in terms of your first fight?
they did offer us a fight for the 18th of November, and like I said, yeah, I was happy to take the fight, but there's issues with the obviously with the pandemic. We're trying to apply for a visa at the minute. It's very difficult, so it was just a bit of it was a bit unfortunate, really, because it was a good fight. First fight of the promotion against the guy who was 15-1. And it was really good. And to be completely honest, like Danny said there, obviously, there's potential for me to go back to that UFC if I want to. But the decision I've made right now is that, like I said, I was saying we thought about a lot of things. Like I said to you before, Brian Butler messaged Bellator like 11. We had a verbal agreement at 11:30. I didn't actually sit down and actually finalize it until a few days afterwards, so I could think of all the outcomes. And one of the outcomes was that I'm signing a contract, and in my mind, my stint in the UFC is over. That's the, obviously if it doesn't, then I go back there, then okay, so be it. But, my career, I've it's not as if I haven't had a career in the UFC, We're the most prestigious company in the world, and I had 7 fights there. So in my mind, I ticked that bucket list off fighting on a major promotion like that. Now I open another bucket list up when I do it on Bellator. And don't get me wrong, that Bellator bantamweight division is stacked. They put me in. I think the rank is at 8th at the minute. Which is I don't usually go off rankings, but looking at where they think I am, 8th, that'll do for the minute. But I'm looking at the top 5 for sure. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, I've told them I'm going to be ready by March, end of February. But we'll see what happens. There's a list of fighters in that division, and I'm happy to fight every one of them. Honestly, I really am.
So I'd like to hear, mate. I can't wait. Cannot wait. And obviously, you both mentioned young fighters and stuff generally there. We've just got off the Cage Warriors Trilogy final day yesterday. It was quite the show again. And full credit, by the way, to Cage Warriors and Graham Boylan, because second time now, and even the first show, because obviously the show where Mason Jones won his first title right at the start of the pandemic. They could have easily cancelled that show, but they kept it on. They made it safe for the fighters and for the staff and everything. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for putting on these shows, but not just putting them on. Like, both these Trilogy cards have been phenomenal in terms of quality of fights, and I thought this one was fantastic again.
I'll be honest with you, Si, the one fight that stood out for me yesterday was Paul Hughes versus Jordan.
Oh yeah.
The reason why it stood out, like, I went online after the fight, and this is what grinds my gears when it comes to people talking about fight decisions. It was a robbery. It wasn't even a robbery. It was. When I looked at the fight, and the way they scored it is the way I scored it personally. That's the way I scored it. Like I said, people can be wrong or whatever, but that's the way I scored it. And at the end of the day, it was one of them fights. It was close, right? Okay, it could have gone the other way, and it was like, okay, well, I didn't score that way, but you can understand why. But in my opinion, it was scored correctly, and it just infuriates me sometimes. I look at online with people who have got to put their 5 pence in, but take away the results, take away everything. That was one of the highest level fights I've seen on a Cage Warriors card, period. That could have slotted into a UFC main card for sure. It was at that level, and fight. It wasn't fighting like 10 times over last night. It really did.
Yeah, it was top quality, really was. And do you know what? So when I watched it live, I thought I had, like, just in my head, I had scored it to Paul Hughes, but obviously Jordan won. I was happy for Jordan. I wanted Jordan to win as one of Danny's fighters. And then what I did is I watched it again last night, and then I kind of was thinking, oh yeah, maybe I can actually see, like, Jordan being the winner. And then this morning I watched it on silent with no commentary, and I had it definitely for Jordan. And as I think I mentioned to you guys before we started recording, I thought the commentary on Cage Warriors wasn't up to the usual high standard in some fights for this trilogy. But I do think Jordan won it. But I tell you what, those two are the future of British and Irish MMA without a doubt, because they were,
run that back.
Oh God, yeah.
It was one hell of a scrap. All fairness to both guys,
Yeah, I spoke to Jordan this morning, and he wants a title shot, and rightly so. But he also said on social media he wouldn't be disappointed to fight this back, run this back either.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, though, like the guy he's looking out for fought after him, that Morgan
Sherrier. He's a boy, man.
Yeah, he's good. He's good, But like, I feel like them 3 guys at the minute in that featherweight division in Cage Warriors, they're the guys to watch out for. Paul Hughes, Jordan, and obviously Sherrier. I can't say Jordan's surname. I apologise. How do you pronounce that? Vucinic, right? Okay.
Yeah, I've been training him for years, and I still can't say it right.
Just call him Jordan.
Yeah.
No, I thought he looked really well. He looked really good last night. And I think a lot of people wrote him off as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people wrote him off, and it just makes that thing that much more sweeter, Like, and at the end of the day, though, everybody's entitled to their opinion, I guess, But like, I kind of watched that fight with an open mind, Obviously, I've kind of seen Jordan coming through the scenes. I've seen him on I think it was an ACP card. I think it was.
Yeah,
might have been on ACP card. I've seen him obviously fight Steve Armable as well. When was that? It was like
that was on the last. That was on the last trilogy. That was.
So like I said, he's fought good guys. And Paul Hughes had that hype, and like, at the end of the day, you can say what you want, and like, I'm a decision fighter. I always have been. But if you got to kind of go into that knowing full well, if you go to the scorecards and leave it that close, it can go any way. People kicking off about it, but that's the way this sport goes, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Dan, I could get your opinion on that now. But one thing I will say is the quality of Jordan, of Paul Hughes, and Morgan Sherrier. They're the kind of like 3 guys at the top of that division that could easily exchange victories amongst themselves a couple of times over. I think they're all quite closely matched. But obviously, in Jordan and Paul Hughes, I'm not sure how old Morgan Sherrier is, but like, obviously Jordan and Paul Hughes are young guys as well, which is very encouraging, from them from a career point of view, but also for the future of British and Irish MMA is phenomenal. Danny, what did you make of Jordan's performance and the general thing?
I mean, both of them, Brett really summed it up. It was some of the highest level Cage Warriors competition you'll ever see. It was really of the highest order. They both demonstrated great in the pocket striking, great strategy and tactical executions, and the wrestling exchanges were great. I mean, the switches that Hughes was pulling off on Jordan were incredible. But Jordan, adapted and changed. We do a lot of wrestling combinations in training together, and he knew to adapt and change and switch it up to make those switches less effective. And he managed to, out exchange him on a couple of those wrestling exchanges in that third round. I think things would have been different had the first round not been spoiled by that crafty cage grab, and it went unnoticed by the referee and seemingly on purpose by the commentary. I was a little bit disappointed in the commentary, the fact that they didn't pick up on it, and it was a fairly obvious one. He was levitated up in the air, was going to be put face first down. I mean, that could have been a very, very different first round. But Jordan ended up getting put on his back because he hit the switch off of that cage grab and put Jordan underneath, and Jordan had to bust quite a lot of energy going for leg locks and scrambles and trying to get out of situations. And perhaps those next two rounds perhaps would have been a little bit more decisive if Jordan could have saved energy by coasting that a win in that first round. But I'm always going to look through biased eyes, I guess, although I try not to.
Right, it was quite blatant though, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but
there's cage grabbing, and then there was
Yeah. I knew it was always going to be close. I said to you, Sire, didn't I, last week, that to me they're both so well matched, and they're both practically the same age. They're similar height, similar skill set, similar incredible athleticism that they both have shown time again. But some of the differences that were notable going in, the fact that Jordan was the underdog, so
massive underdog, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had no pressure on his shot. I knew what he was capable of. So that were kind of like, it's a shot to nothing. If he loses, no one's going to be surprised. So that kind of would help Jordan in my eyes. And the fact that Jordan's had a lot of experience in these pro fights. When you have a look at what Paul Hughes has done, he ain't been out the first round, I don't think, has he?
No.
Kind of decimated all his opponents. So, he hasn't had that experience of, fighting when you're tired and fighting when you're hurting and trying to adapt your game plan in round 2 and 3 to try and keep winning. And whereas Jordan's been there, and I think that showcased through.
Yeah, 100%, mate. It was exceptional stuff all round. Another fight from yesterday's Cage Warriors card, which I was paying a lot of interest to. Apart from the main event, obviously, I was watching that. I thought Morgan Charrier was exceptional, really impressive. But Ian Gary is making a bit of a name for himself. Fought earlier on in the card. He won in like the first round again. He looks like he's going to be quite the fighter as well. The Welsh boys didn't have as much success as I was hoping. I really fancied both. Well, I fancied all of them, to be honest, but I really thought Aaron Khalid was going to win. But Leonardo Damiani, I think his name's pronounced. I was really quite impressed with him, the Italian guy. I thought he was really, really good. And I thought it was quite a close fight, split decision. But I was a little bit disappointed for Aaron. Ben Ellis was very, very good. That was one of the ones where I was very disappointed in the commentary, because if you had been listening to just the commentary and not watching the fight, you'd have thought that Kingsley Crawford had sailed it. Yet Ben Ellis won on a unanimous decision, and I thought he won quite clearly as well. Without it wasn't one-sided, but I thought he won quite obviously.
Yeah, no, I watched that fight right again, and the difference is I watched that fight without commentary because I was in my gym doing my session on Friday night, and I managed to get the fight up on obviously I think it was FIGHT-PASS, but obviously we were training, so we just turned the sound off and just watched it as we went along, and like I said, Ben won 29-28 in my eyes all around. It was quite simple, Don't get me wrong, that Crawford's good. I've seen Crawford fight a few times, very good, but it was definitely Ben's fight. With Aaron, as we go for, because I'm a big fan of Aaron. I'm a big fan of him, and the way he conducts himself outside the cage as well is is brilliant. You know, he's a good, great guy, and he trains hard. And I love them crafty submissions he pulls off. But like I said, it was a good fight for Aaron to see where he's at. You know, it was a bit of if I'm not mistaken, it was a bit of a change up of opponent as well, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
last I think 3 days notice or something,
Yeah,
something
do you
like
know what
that.
I mean? So it's a bit like, you know, you can argue, don't get me wrong, like the Italian guy had 3 days notice, but then again, you know, Aaron's got to adapt his style for that, and that's just as difficult in my opinion. But yeah, and obviously my teammate then, Josh Reed,
Yeah.
I thought Josh put a hell of a performance on. I really did, you know, and I feel like the actual submission he got caught in, I don't feel like he really did anything wrong other than land in a bad position, you know. And sometimes you'll be grappling and like you'll do something correctly, but someone will fall over awkwardly and you land in like a triangle. Like, well, I've been caught with loads of them in my time, you know, just doing a good takedown and landing in the wrong position and getting capitalized on it. It happens to the best of us, you know. And but overall, I thought he performed brilliantly. Like Josh would probably disagree, but I feel like for him it was a fantastic scrap. I thought it was a really good fight, and I was gutted for him. You know, he trained hard for the fight, and I know he's disappointed. But I spoke to the guys the next day in the gym, and we all said the same. You know, we think he did fantastic in the fight. You know.
Yeah, funny enough, I was going to ask you that because we had Josh on a couple of weeks back. We obviously talked about his training, his fight, and stuff like that. But I thought he looked phenomenal from start to finish until literally he got caught with the submission.
Yeah.
And it was just, like you say, a bit unfortunate. And I was going to ask you, was it just basic, you know, just a bit of bad luck with the way he landed? Because I thought he looked so sharp, mate. I really did.
Yeah.
Considering he haven't fought for a year, over a
Yeah.
year.
Like all fairness to Josh, like him and Jack, and obviously my other team is Scott Pearson. They're the three guys that spar the most in the gym. And like Josh is man, he can club people. There's a difference between hitting someone and clubbing someone, and Josh has got that natural power that when he hits you, you just go dizzy, you know. And that's very rare to have. And people saw that in the Nathaniel Wood fight. You could see that firsthand how heavy-handed he really is. But yeah, like personally, like obviously, you can see the fighter in him. He's got that he hasn't picked up a win, but like I spoke to Dickie Shaky, and he's happy, like, you know, with the performance, you know, and all fairness to Josh, man, he trains hard, and you know, I think he's disappointed, but everybody else around him seems to be like, it was a good fight, it was,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes you're just unlucky in this game. That's all there is, like, you know, because you know you can do everything you can to train. In all fairness, he trained really hard for the fight, and when you go into a fight and you're fully prepared mentally, you're like, well, there's nothing else I could have done. So if anything happens, it's just a case of on the night a bit of luck, you know, and yeah, you can get caught sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it is what it is, I guess, isn't it? Danny, what did you make of Ben, Josh, and Aaron's performances and fights?
Yeah,
Have you seen them all back now?
Yeah, no, you know what, I haven't had time because obviously I had to travel back and everything. And when I'm actually there, it was really hard to
catch them
see
all,
the
yeah.
fights. Yeah, it was really hard. I saw bits of Khaled's one. I was trying to watch it on someone else's phone that they had set up in there. And you know, the bits I actually saw of Khaled looked like he was sort of doing a good job of smothering. He looked like a real grind. That's what he looked like to me. But yeah, I just didn't get to see it enough to comment accurately, if you will. So yeah,
Aaron,
I really need to sit down and have a good old watch.
Yeah, Aaron got caught with a couple of shots, but I thought he looked pretty good. Obviously, another one of your fighters, Dan, fought on that same night, which was Tom Mearns fought Steve Amiable. Not the fight that Tom was hoping for, but he got caught, mate, a bit. I was going to ask you a question, mate. So obviously I was watching it, and I felt like maybe Tom was a bit over eager, maybe.
Yeah,
in the early stages, and then he got caught.
Tom loves to go forward, but when he had done his weight cut, I mean, this is not making an excuse. You've got to get everything running right, but he gulped his water down after the weight cut, and then he ended up with diarrhea and dehydrated. And even in the warm-up room, he wasn't wanting to be as active. He normally likes to do a really long, gradual warm-up and then peak it before he goes out, normally a good hour long. just wasn't really wanting to do his combinations in there. And I said, "Oh, how you feeling?" He goes, "Yeah, my legs feel a bit tired." And I was a little bit concerned in there, but Tom don't get rocked with shots. It's so rare. He's been really clubbed over the course of all these years training and fighting. And he got rocked just a little bit easier than I'd normally ever see him get rocked. And I put that partly down to the fact that he hadn't hydrated properly. And, you make a slight error like that, and that could be the consequence, especially if someone as good and experienced as Steve Ainable. It was a forearm smash that started it all off, wasn't it? It was like a forearm strike, which broke him with a big forearm, which broke his arm. And, when we all spar and train, we all complain about Tom's big head because we all hurt our wrists and knuckles on him. And so we're not surprised that someone finally broke their arm on his head. But, look, he didn't get the result again. He's, really having a hard time maintaining any string of results. He did have a win on Cage Warriors a number of fights ago, but now he has a string of losses. He is coming down to the featherweight. He'd been fighting lightweight, for which he put a really good performance in against Lister. But again, didn't get the result on that, although I felt in my mind that he might have edged that fight. But hey, like Brett says, when it's close, you're putting it in the hands of the judges. It can also go against you. That one went against him. And this one was a catchweight. I might do another catchweight or might go full round to the featherweight where he belongs. And we'd have to try to just get these results going, because if it doesn't happen, where do you go from there? You've got to rebuild from the sport shows up again. And has he got the motivation to do that? Time will only tell. But I know he wants it. He's just got to get things. You've got to get things together again. He's got to get back to winning ways. There's no other way. What's the point of being in it?
Yeah, back on the horse, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he's clearly got a lot of talent. It's just putting everything together, I guess. Look, I would urge any MMA fan to go back and watch the Cage Warriors all three days, because I thought they were outstanding. Few other notable performances. Michelle Figlack defeated Anthony O'Connor on the pro prelims on the first night, and also the first night Luke Shanks made his first defense of the flyweight title, and I was so pumped for this fight versus Jake Hadley.
Yeah,
but I said to you guys before we started recording about Tony Ferguson's fight last night. Jake Hadley was so impressive in this fight, and I really, really rate Luke Shanks as a fighter, but I thought Jake Hadley was incredible. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. So Jake, right? Okay. He's 7-0 now, I think. And like I said, this is a bit of a statement to say, right? Okay. But I thought about it carefully. I think Jake Hadley is one of the, if not the best flyweight I think the UK will have for a very long time. That's my opinion. The guy is super young. He's already a 2-time world champion. Won the Cage Warriors title and won a title out in the UFC Africa. And I've watched this guy for a very long time. Very, very, very long time. And I think, honestly, the next step for this guy, even at 7-0, wherever he is that call up to the UFC. I think he beats a lot of UFC fighters at flyweight, no problems at all. I really do. And like I said, he just looks fantastic every time he's in there, and his attitude to the sport is just brilliant. He trains so hard, man.
Yeah, the talk before the fight was that whoever wins is going to go to UFC out of this. I thought, and we've had Luke on the show a couple of times. I get on well with him, and I like him a lot. He's a cool dude. But I thought he fell into the trap a little bit. He made it. I felt like from the outside that he made it personal, and then I felt like that affected his whole game plan, because you could hear his corner telling him to do certain things, and he wasn't listening. He was ploughing forward and trying to instigate things which weren't working, and I feel like he was so
in the moment.
He was so focused. He wanted to get him down, and he wanted to just pound the shit out of him, and he got so obsessed with doing that he fell into a trap a little bit. Do you think that's fair, Dan, or am I being a bit overcritical of him there?
No, you're absolutely right. You got to remember, I trained Luke for many, many years before he went up to Scotland, and I know what he's like as a character, and he's a true fighter in every sense. And when I say that, I mean if someone wrongs him on the street, he'll have a fisticuffs on the street. He's just that kind of lad. And but this is a sport, nevertheless, and the sport means you've got to play the game well. And he didn't. He tried to fight it rather than play it. And Hadley played it. And he played it ever so well. Hadley's strong. He's big at the weight. He's technical. He's got calm demeanor. And Luke lost a lot of his advantages through his eagerness to try to hurt. Yeah. And of course, hurting is part of the game that MMA is. To play the game, you've got to put the hurt, but you've got to have control to do that. And he had no control of the positions. He was swinging before setting anything up. He actually looked quite good in the very first minute and a half of the first round. He actually snagged Hadley with a few shots, and Hadley didn't want to have none of it. He shot in, got success with the takedown, smothered Luke somewhat, and he thought, hey, you know what, this ain't so bad down on the ground. I'll keep putting it there. And Luke gave him it. He gave him it. He literally ran towards him.
Even in the fifth round, wasn't he? When he needed to finish the fight, he still did it the same. He
had a running, jumping knee. Now, I don't know whether that was even a good idea. He just needed to keep it standing and try to put some anxiety onto Joe Hadley, but Hadley controlled it throughout. And Brett's probably right. This is one of the best people we'll see for a long time in this weight division. And I think he'll very quickly have success in the UFC. He's got his head in UFC, this guy, man. Come on. He's
100%.
And been extremely, extremely dominant, whether it's striking or on the ground or in wrestling exchanges. He just seems to be on top all the time.
But I look at that UFC flyweight rankings, Brett, right? And outside of maybe the top 5, I'd fancy him against most of them. I gotta be honest.
100%. Like, I look at him, like I said, I gotta be honest, watching the last night's main event in the UFC, that was absolutely incredible, right? But like going, like you said, going outside that top 5 then, though, and like the thing is like Danny said, he's very composed character. He knows what he wants, and what we described there about Shanks was that he was over eager and then he went in. This is like the blueprint of what I was like for the Aljamain Sterling fight. The whole thing just got on top of me. I feel like subconsciously, it's only until about 3 months after when everything had died down, I looked back and I thought, yeah, actually, I think I might have just taken it all a bit too fast, taken it all in, because like Danny knocked out the park when he said like he didn't set anything up, he was just swinging. That's generally what I was like for that fight. Sometimes the occasion can get the better of you, and you learn a lot from it. Put it that way, you learn a lot from it. So I do see him coming back with a bit of vengeance and getting it there. But like I said, it's a bit of a steep one to take on. But going back to Jake Hadley, man, yeah, I do see him fighting anybody in that top, like from 5 to 15, yeah, and you could just drop him in like a pin. You could just pick where to put him, But
I'd stick him against either Tyson Nam or Jordan Espinosa straight out of the bat. I would, and say, there you go.
The Jordan Espinosa fight would be a good one. I met Jordan. I think he's a cool guy, but that'd be a good fight for him, And where's Jordan in the rankings there?
Jordan's 14th. So see, that's what I mean. I would drop Jake straight in with a ranked fighter and say, right, see what you got, because he went out to South Africa, mate, and dominated.
Ridiculous.
He's now beaten the best flyweight in the UK, and he's beaten him comfortably, mate, over 5 rounds. And what people said, including people like me, people like Danny, people who talk about MMA, is everyone said, if it goes 5 rounds, Luke Shanks is going to win. If it finishes in the first couple of rounds, Jake Hadley's going to finish him on the feet.
Yeah.
And Jake Hadley dominated him, but on the floor over 5 rounds. So I think he showed that he's not just power, he's technique and he's skill, and he's
a different fighter, man.
Yeah, man. I was really impressed with it. And not necessarily because it was quite dominant. He was showing skills that I hadn't seen from him. And he didn't even look out of breath, man. 5 rounds of dominating someone, you should be out of breath, I would think. Yeah. Okay, we still got lots to cover, and I want to try and talk about as much stuff as possible with you, Brett, before you've got to go. So just before we go into the UFC, Anthony Joshua fought last night, mate. I know you've seen at least a little bit. What did you think of his performance?
I watched the whole fight, really. Yeah, I thought it was that I think it's Polyev you say his
But
name.
yeah,
Yeah, he's man, he was awkward, man. Even after the fight, it was a bit weird, like, you know, just the way he was, you know. But going to the actual performance itself, I think it's one of the best Anthony Joshua's we've seen in there. The jab was super effective. You've seen that nastiness with the uppercuts come in, which is like, I didn't think we've seen a lot of that before, you know. But like looking at him and seeing like he was more of an aggressive but like calm
controlled,
Anthony
wasn't it?
Joshua, controlled. Yeah, you know, it was really good. And yeah, I thought it was a good performance. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big Anthony Joshua fan, you know.
No,
Long live the Gypsy King, you know. But like I said, you know, it was good to watch him. And I thought performance wise, yeah, there's a lot to think about. But look, I'm like every other person in the nation who follows boxing. They have to set up that fight now.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bob Arum has got to do something to set that fight up, because I think if that fight does, I think that fight will not only be one of the biggest fights in heavyweight boxing history, I think it will save boxing, because I'll be completely honest, boxing at the minute is just a laughing stock. You know?
Dying on his ass.
It is, and you need people that you need them fights, because that's the biggest fight out there. Right, like I said, for example, and I love the fact that Roy Jones and Tyson had that like exhibition. But they sold more pay-per-views for that, apparently, than they did for Deontay Wilder versus Fury. Like, that's where boxing is at the minute. That needs to stop, you know. And having a fight with Joshua, having a fight with Tyson versus Joshua, let's get all these belts unified to see who the number one heavyweight, the baddest man on the planet is. That's going to draw some crazy crowds.
Yeah, the thing is with boxing, is heavyweight boxing is where people care. And you've got these two stars, these two superstars, whereby if they don't fight each other, there's no other heavyweight fight which people want to see. Like, no one's interested unless these two fight. One thing I will say is before yesterday's fight, I thought there's no way Anthony Joshua's beating Fury. I just didn't see it. I just thought he's too good. One thing which last night's fight did, I agree with you. I thought it was the best Anthony Joshua we've seen. He looked light, he looked quick, he looked powerful. And I thought, there's some stuff there which Fury will look at that and say, okay.
Yeah, he knows what he's working with. Yeah, 100%.
And his jab was great, but I think Fury can deal with the jab because Fury's so quick for someone who's 6'7" or whatever he is. Like, he's so quick. He can deal with the jab. 6'9". He's incredible, isn't it? But like those uppercuts, they were nasty. So like I would think, Tyson Fury's a student of the game, isn't he? So he's going to look at things like that. But they've got to do it, mate. They've got to do it. And the other thing I'll say is it was great to see fans back in combat sports
100%.
arena watching, and that was great. Did you watch it, Dan?
I did, yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Joshua. I find him.
He rubs people up the wrong way, didn't he?
Yeah, well, putting anything personal, to start even just the way boxing. It reminds me a little bit of Frank Bruno, the way he was. He was good, kind of heavy-handed but not quick. His uppercuts look good, and he come forward a little bit more than he does, in other fights. But I don't know. I just felt like he was the bigger man in there, and I think that helped for his confidence. And his confidence was growing throughout the match and stuff. But I just think he'll always fall short with someone that can take it to him. And
Tyson Fury.
I don't think it'll even be close if you went up against Tyson Fury. And again, I agree with what Brett was saying. Boxing's got to have something happen drastically. There's like so many different titles out there that they got a way to always avoid fighting each other, regards proving who really is the best. And this is something you've got to love about MMA. We get a treat practically every weekend, seeing guys with unbeaten records facing each other, or people on a nice win streak. We'll see these really interesting matchups. We'll get our questions answered regards to who would win out of who and who. They get it on. It seems like there's no fear to put it on the line in the MMA community. Yet in boxing, they're like running scared to be proved wrong, or I don't know. It's just frustrating boxing. It has been for decades now.
In my opinion, there's only a couple of weight divisions which, at the minute, seem to be of some sort of interest. So then you got the weight categories from 130 to 140 with Javante Davis, Ryan Garcia, Lomachenko, and all them guys. You know what I mean? But and heavyweight. So 130 to 140, and you got heavyweight. Pound for pound greatest fight on the planet is a middleweight, Canelo Alvarez. Nobody wants to fight him, or if anybody does want to fight him, it's nobody worth his time. I tell you what, though, he's fighting Smith soon. That'll be a good fight. I think it's Callum Smith. That'll be a good fight because obviously Canelo's fought is one of his brothers and stopped with a body shot, but this is the better Smith brother. But that is a little bit of like, I'm intrigued with that one, but you know, like I said, they need more. There's too many characters in boxing, but not enough fighting in boxing, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And not enough to fight. You know, like you said, the good guys not fighting each other. You know, like in the UFC, got a live. Like you know, you got like last night, for example, that flyweight world title. That's the champion of the world fighting the number one contender. Yeah. Now, the next fight will be the champion of the world fighting the number two contender. And it's always near that. And in the period of that happening, the top five has changed about. You know, don't get me wrong, you've got some weight divisions there where it's gone a bit stale. But that's the other side of the coin. At least you've seen them fighters fight good guys. Like, for example, Adesanya, who's fought the best guys. It's a bit of a stalemate with him at the minute, knowing who he's going to fight next. But, like, he's fought good guys already, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not as if he hasn't fought that level of competition to start off with.
Yeah, they don't avoid the best fighters, do they? Like, the best fighters don't avoid each other for years and years and years. And I just think it gets a bit frustrating. And the longer it goes on where you're waiting for this fight, you care less and less. Because I feel like the way boxing is over the last 10, 15 years is the delay in like Mayweather fighting Pacquiao. It didn't make you want it more. It kind of got to the point where it was like, oh, I don't care anymore. Yeah. And I don't want that to happen because I feel like if they leave it, you know, if it drags on another year, for instance, that they don't fight each other, I'm going to care less about it. And also, they're getting older. So it's not going to, like, you want them to fight now where they're at their, you know, their peak. They're both looking top draw. They're both looking dominant. That's when I want to see them fight. I don't want to see them fight when they're starting to wane. Yeah,
put it in like an MMA perspective. How excited were we to see Tony Ferguson fight Khabib?
Yeah.
I know that moment's gone. That moment's gone now. You know? So, like, that's, you know, it's basically when people start talking about it, you probably should start getting a move on with doing it, you know. But like, you know, we were lucky a few years back. We had the Trilogy and Canelo fights. You know, I think they were good fights to set up. But like, for example, like the way that Conor McGregor and Mayweather was, that was one of the biggest boxing fights of the last 2 or 3 years, and you know, it's just crazy to say it really, but it was like, you know, but we'll see what goes boxing next few years.
There was one more Cage Warriors fight I just wanted to mention, and that was Sam Creasy versus Adam Singer. I'm sorry, Sam, I didn't forget you, mate. But I tell you what, I thought Sam in the first trilogy, he came on the show just after, and he said like he was, you know, he won, but he was disappointed with his performance. He felt rusty, and he felt like he hadn't shown, you know, he'd grounded out, but he hadn't shown what he was capable of. Adam Singer came into this on a 4 or 5 fight win streak. He's looked super impressive. And Sam Creasy beat him comfortably, I thought. Go on, Dan. Yeah, Brett, you go first, mate.
Yeah, so Sam's been someone like I've been watching for a while because I feel like he's been on the scene for a very long time, and I feel like now we're starting to get his momentum. That is, if the UFC don't sign Jake Hadley, which I think if they don't sign that guy full stop, they've dropped the ball there.
Yeah.
I see Sam Creasy being his next title challenger. Really, you know, the guy's picked up some good wins, and that would be a good, interesting fight. You know, I think Sam Creasy is quite big and physical for that weight, as well as Jake Hadley. So it'd be that'd be an interesting fight to watch if they don't sign him in time. But like, obviously, if they do sign Jake to the UFC, I guess they could set up the Shanks versus Creasy fight. You know.
Yeah, I think, and they're teammates now, aren't they? No, not of course they're not, because Luke's up in Scotland. Go on, Dan. What did you make of Sam's performance, mate?
I thought it generally was quite good. I've never been a fan of the choice of guard or lack of
Yeah.
that Sam has in the striking, especially in a division where they're so fast. They're like laser beams when they punch and kick at each other. So I've always criticised him for that. And I'm lucky enough to be able to train on and off Sam, and he'd come into camp to get ready for this one alongside his other training that he does. So I helped him a little bit with his cage wrestling for this one, for which he sent a lovely message to me afterwards, thanking me for everything that I've helped him with. But but Sam is an absolute gentleman. And I train his brother full time, Tom Creasy. He's going to be one to watch out for in the future. And you're right, Sam is really strong at the weight, but his brother even more physically strong, incredibly strong at the weight. Don't look nothing wise in size. When you look at, but when they get older of you, it's like, geez, they'll spar with people 15 kilos heavier and do well with them on a physical level.
These flyweights, man, they're deceptive.
Yeah. They're big weight cutters, but they're very, very clean, eating very, very clean living, and they're very, very healthy, and so they can get away with doing these big weight cuts. They do it, and they do it right. I think what did impress me with Sam was his defensive wrestling, which we worked a lot on, but the fact that he worked the single tie clinch with the sometimes outside and under pummel, other arm control with the knees. So it stopped Amazinga being able to relax and just do the wrestle grind. He was giving him those knees to think about, and I think that was a nice little switch up Sam was putting in. Amazinga did look like, I don't know whether he's suffering from a little dehydration, he says, and himself like Tom did, but he did seem to get rocked a little bit too easy with shots that weren't, although he was landing clean, they weren't being put through him, and he was getting wobbled rather easy. Now, whether that's just that he doesn't have a very good chin, or whether that's the fact that he cuts a lot of weight, because he was a bit taller as well.
He's a big boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's quite big at that weight. Surprising. Yeah, he was still performing well though up until he had that hiccup. I know he got knocked down in that previous round before the finish happened. But yeah, let's move Sam up. Sam and Hadley, that would definitely be a good fight. Definitely be
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
It's just whether Jake's still there, mate, I think.
Yeah. I just don't think he will. So yeah, quite possibly we see Sam and Luke, and they've sparred a lot together. That's something I've seen, and they've both got strengths in skilled areas opposite to each other. So that would really make for a great fight. And yeah, it'd be a hard one for me to watch.
It'd be nice to see Sam get that title shot. You come up short against Nathan Grayson before, but it would be nice to see him. I think he's obviously this sport's unforgiving, and it's you don't get rewarded for your times too. You get rewarded for your performances, but
yeah,
I feel like he's one of the guys that's done enough in this game to have a title shot and to be called a world champion. I really do, and it would on a personal level. See, I've watched a lot of his fights to see him pick that belt up and get that title around his waist. But yeah, it'd be good to see that fight. It's interesting, man. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Cage Warriors, they got some really interesting directions to go in that next trilogy in March. It's going to be fascinating to see kind of who's still there, who they match up, and who gets the title shots and whatnot. So be watching with a bit of more than a bit of interest. Right, Brett, just before you shoot off, mate, I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the UFC stuff from last night, and then me and Danny will go through after you've gone, and we'll go through match by match. Tony Ferguson, last week, a couple of times over the last month or so when we've been talking about this fight, I said I was worried about the damage he took in the Gaethje fight, and the age of him. He's obviously getting a bit older, but just the psychological side of it, whether he was going to be the same fighter that he was previous to the Gaethje fight. And but I did tip him to win last week. I said I want to see the old Tony Ferguson. I'm hoping that's who we see. Do you put down he lost 30-26 across the board to Charles Oliveira? Charles Oliveira could not have looked more impressive. Was it just that Charles Oliveira was that good, or was it a combination of him being that good and Tony Ferguson maybe isn't where he was previously?
Look, the last fight with Tony and with Gaethje, I remember having the Pedro fight, and then obviously losing that fight and took a good kicking in the process. That it didn't take me a week or 2 weeks to get back from that. It took me months. You know, it took me, like, put it this way, I fought August 2018, and I didn't step foot back in the cage till January this year. You know, it knocked me for 6. The injuries I had from that fight. And it doesn't only physically hurt you, but it mentally hurts you as well. Knowing full well the pain you've been in, especially with that fight where, you know, I don't even feel like Tony quit in that fight. I felt like it was his brain going, look, I've had enough, man. Do you know what I mean? And to come back from that, sometimes that can be worse than actually getting knocked out. That can be worse. Taking a fight like that and just getting absolutely pounded out the way he did, it can be overwhelming. Like, I remember coming back from that fight with Pedro, and I made sure, I was like, look, I'm not rushing into any fights. Although I did want a fight in the November after fighting like that in August. And my manager turned around and said, oh, look, I think you should take some time off. And good thing I did, because looking back now at the picture, I'd lost against Sterling and then jumped straight back into another fight to try and correct that mistake, and then lost again. Then it was a case of just going, do you know what, I'm better off probably just taking a step back from the game, keeping my training going, but like taking my time to recover and be a better professional outside the octagon, with my weight, with my attitude to the sport. And yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, I know it was the beginning of this year. I think it was like March time they fought, or April time. Yeah. But that for the fight that happened to him back in April to now, he might need longer, you know. And the good thing is, obviously, other than the armbar itself, he hasn't really taken much damage, you know, considering the Gagey fight. So for him to come back now, I'd say to him to take some time off, you know, get over his injuries and stuff, because that guy is super injury prone as well. You know, that guy gets injured a lot. If you watch his videos, it doesn't you know, it doesn't take long to realize why he does get injured a lot. You know, and yeah, you know, if he I'm gutted. I'm a big Tony fan. You know, don't get me wrong. After like watching Oliveira fight Kevin Lee, I was a big fan of Oliveira, but yeah, I'm interested in seeing Tony's next moves. Like you said, Si, he's getting older now, and you know, like I said, a lot of fighters go on, but like you can't keep on the fights that Tony Ferguson has. You know what I mean? Like, you've got exceptions in this game of people who can last a while, but like it's once a boom. Like a Donald Cerrone is like one in 1,000 that can do that. You know, but perfectly honest, not everybody can do it. Just because Donald Cerrone can do it doesn't mean you can, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Ferguson broke his arm as well at the end of that first 100%. Round.
Yeah.
The arm is not supposed to bend like that. And, you know, and again, like Ferguson being the fighter, the person that he is, he was never going to tap. So it was just like snap it or end the round, and the end of the round come like.
I'd have been squealing like a pig.
Oh, he was. Daniel Cormier couldn't even look at it. No. The other guy I wanted to ask you about just before you chip off was obviously the main event. But what did you make of the Junior Dos Santos Cyril Garnier finish and the elbow?
So I watched that fight. I think the jab beforehand caused a lot of like. Basically, as soon as Junior Santos got caught with that jab, I think that's what hurt him, you know. But like watching the actual like the way he executed that jab for a heavyweight, that was quick. Like and like it's like I said, he's not fighting a grappler. That Cyril Gain wasn't fighting a grappler. He was fighting Junior Dos Santos, who was a renowned striker in mixed martial arts, and you should have seen how quick that jab was, and just the way his movement. Like I said, Gain's good on the ground as well, but to watch his movement and striking, you can see he's good on the feet. He's definitely someone to watch, and I don't think that people realize how much of a big winner is over Junior Dos Santos. The guy's only 7-0. You know, the guy hasn't got a massive record, but he's got to be in that top, like, what, 7 now? Maybe top 10? Yeah. He has to be with the win over Junior Dos Santos, you know, and that's another guy I hate seeing lose, Junior Dos Santos. I hate seeing that guy lose. He's one of my idols the heavyweight division for MMA, because when I was coming through like the scene, I remember UFC 95 in London. Joe Stevenson was fighting Diego Sanchez in London, main event, and he stopped Stefan Struve in 30 seconds. Like, that's the Junior Santos I know, and it's not nice seeing these fighters, getting older and start losing, especially when you're a fan,
Yeah, big time. And then lastly, the main event, mate. What did you think of Figueiredo's performance?
Yeah, it was good, man. And let's not forget, man, these two boys fought like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
It's crazy,
And people they've just signed the fight, got it done, and I thought it was fantastic. Moreno looked incredible, looked really good. There's a reason why he's the number 1 contender, and Figueiredo is just, like I said, it's mad how when someone goes champion, you just say, "Oh, look, he's the champion. He looks good every fight." But I think it was a really good, entertaining fight, and I feel like they're going to have to run that back. Look, if it wasn't for the point deduction, it was Figueiredo's, It was as clean cut as that, I did feel like it was close. Like, I give Figueiredo the first 3, and I think Moreno the last 2, I think it was, if I can remember correctly. But obviously the point deduction will put that to a draw then, And, it was fair scoring. But, obviously they could run it back. But I do feel like if it wasn't for that deduction, he would have won that fight,
Yeah, 100%. Can't get any closer, really. And like you said, they fought a couple of weeks ago, and because it was a majority draw, because of the point deduction, they're gonna have to run it back again.
You'll have to,
And, it's such a shame for us fans that we got to watch that incredible fight again. But
feel sorry for us guys.
I know. Right, Brett, appreciate you joining us, mate. As always, it's legendary talking to you. Always a good time. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Just a quick shout out to the boys at SMMA with Richard Shaw, Jack Shaw, and the team there. Obviously this year has been fantastic. I changed teams over at the start of the year to go from Swansea up to Abertillery, and they've taken me in, and I'm very grateful. And it's been a fantastic year with them guys, and just looking forward to touch wood. It's been a good year this year. I would have liked about 3 or 4 fights, but considering 2019 I had no fights, then it's been a fantastic year and getting 2 wins. But I want to thank Shaky, Carl Park. I want to thank James Wallace and the KGB as well. It's been a good year. It's been a good year considering everything that's happened and the global pandemic coming in the way. I think I've been very lucky. But thanks for having me on, boys, and hopefully I get to speak to you soon.
Yeah,
always.
Good luck, Brett, for the future, man.
Thank you,
Brett,
man. Thank you, Danny. Thank you.
plug your podcast, Brett, as well.
Oh yeah. Obviously, we've got a podcast in a minute. The reason why we're not doing much of it is because my brother's expecting a little one, and by the size of his missus, we thought she'd be early, but turns out she's late. So she's probably got my genes. I'm always late to everything. So but fingers crossed now that'll be all done and dusted, and we'll get back up. But it's anyone can get a podcast. Give us a little follow. But can't wait now. 2021. Let's hit it hard.
Indeed. Have a good Christmas, Brett.
There you go. You two boys have a good one, lads.
Cheers.
Easy,
Thank you.
Ta-ra, boys. Ta-ra, lads.
Brett Johns, what a legend, top man he is. He's a talker. He loves it. He's just like Jack and Richard Shaw last week, mate. Students of the game, and they watch everything, and they just absorb it, take it in, and again, like Brett's talking about, he saw Jordan in some, what was it? I forgot what he said now, but it was like a so what's that? Like a regional one, is it?
No, ACB was that Russian promotion.
Oh, was it?
Really quite big, yeah. But there's been some issues. I think they renamed it. There were some issues that they've had. But it was a pretty big deal when it first came.
When it was there.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like Absolute Championship Ahmed, is it?
Yeah.
Formerly known as Absolute Champ ACB.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
ACA now.
Yeah. I thought it gave the impression it was going to be around doing big things, but I don't know what I mean, I think they are about as a promotion, but I don't know whether they got renamed something like that. up on it enough to.
Yeah, I just had a quick search, but yeah, like I say, he's he's a student of the game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing his first fight in Bellator because, and again, it's my opinion, I think he was being kind to the bantamweight Bellator division. I think going into that division, he's already one of the best fighters in there. But there's a couple of guys in there that are
No, but yeah, I think
not too shady.
him going in. I think he said eighth, wasn't it?
Eighth, yes.
I think he's comfortable with that because he's not being pushed out at the top 10 for one.
Yeah.
But also, I think if you start hitting in at the top 5 from the get go, that can kind of aggravate and rub up.
There's pressure on you,
isn't
it?
Well, I don't think it's even the pressure. I just think it's other fighters get their nose put out of joint and you're not there. I don't know. Just
got to earn it, I suppose, haven't you? Like you got to get there.
He would probably not sit so comfortable. He wants to be there and prove his path, and he will very quickly. I'm sure of that.
Yes, indeed. So, UFC from last night, mate. We'll go straight into the. Was there anything on the prelims which you enjoyed? One thing I will say, mate. Rafael Fiziev versus Moicano.
Yeah.
Fiziev is a special boy, mate.
Yeah, and I really liked what he was doing with the footwork because he's given away a little height and reach against Renato, and Renato was really wanting to engage and get him on the end of his long techniques, but Fiziev was just going left and right with his footwork, subtly enough so that he was never on the centre line, and every time he stopped on the centre line, he threw down it. And he also had a really, really good body kick as well, which stopped the return from Renato. He was hitting really hard, but I really just loved his composure and how he stayed off that centre line. It really, really, really was a great strategy. And then, well, when he landed, he got the job done very, very quick. The combination was beautiful. We went to the body to the head, back up to the head again, and then that crunch on the floor, to put it to bed, so to speak. Yeah, very, very impressive.
Yes, indeed. It was very impressive, very enjoyable, and I'd be very interested to see who they match him up with next. What else do we have on the prelims? Tisha Torres beat Sam Hughes via a TKO doctor stoppage. She was quite impressive. Gavin Tucker versus Billy Quarantillo went to a decision. That was an enjoyable little fight. Enjoyed that one. Gavin Tucker, by the way, he's one to really watch for 2021. Right. Very impressive. Cub Swanson also won on the prelims.
I really enjoyed watching that fight, and Cub Swanson, he was eating up some leg kicks, and it looked like it was really bothering him. But he fights well both ways. And Cub Swanson's cross hands, no matter which way he stanced, he punches so deep with his cross hands. It was to behold, and it was his saving grace. And what was the name of his opponent again?
Daniel Pineda.
Pineda. Yeah, that's it. Pineda. He was looking devastating in that first round. His leg kicks were hard. He was throwing really, really good cross hands of his own right. And I thought Swanson was kind of getting a bit difficult, but Cop really wrestled well as well. That really impressed me. And there's some of those ground exchanges, the way he got back to his feet. We see Cub Swanson so many times as someone who's just a bit of a brawler, but he's got some skills there too. He done really, really well to get back up to his feet, and great tactician too, because he switched up things because of that damaged leg, switching his stance at the right point, so it wasn't consequential enough to be put out of the equation completely, and push forward, which is exactly what you can do. If someone's kicking your legs as hard as Pineda was, you've got to press forward on them, get those hands connecting, you've got to run them back, and he did that really, really well, and it was a fantastic win for him. It's nice to see him again because it has been a while. He was super active one year, or over a couple of years. But how long has it been now? It must have been.
It's been a while since he last fought, and that.
Great to see him back.
He looked really in shape and sharp, and just looked like he's got a bit of zip back in his game all around, which I really enjoyed seeing because he's a legend of the sport. So this, sometimes we talk about it a bit. As guys get to a certain age, their attributes and their kind of levels can deteriorate, and it's it's not nice to watch, is it? When you see guys who you've kind of watched dominate and watched, really got you excited over the years with their fights, and then you start seeing them get destroyed by the younger guys, it can be a bit not depressing, but it's not the greatest feeling in the world. And on that note, I guess the main card opened up with Junior Dos Santos versus Cyril Garnier, with Garnier picking up the win via TKO in just over 2.5 minutes of the second round. Obviously, Brett covered a bit of the finish. The thing I was wondering, did you think that elbow was illegal? That caught him just after the jab?
Regardless of whether it landed in what we would class as an illegal area, Dos Santos was turning his head away, so for that fact, it was not illegal.
Okay. I thought it caught him kind of like that spot behind the ear is
yeah, you've got to
there's
connect
like a
with
spot, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Legal.
If you punch or throw an elbow or forearm or however you want to see it, as long as it connects to the ear, it's a legal shot. Now, I'm not too sure whether it actually did connect to it. This is just surmise that it didn't connect with the ear. The fact that Santos was turning his head away puts his head at a target. It wasn't really, Gagnon was not aiming for it to be illegal. But for me, Junior Dos Santos has not impressed me for the last 4 or 5 outings. He just hasn't. He used to chase to finish the fights, and he's clearly got dynamite in his hands, but you have to push forward to connect them. And to me, he was waiting on the outside too much. And is it Garnier?
Garnier.
Garnier. How you pronounce his name? Garnier was just looking great with his kicks. He was light on his feet for a big man. He was kicking with lovely technique. He was going inside leg, outside leg, up to the body, kicking really, really well. But Dos Santos was not pushing forward enough. And when he did, he got success, but it was just so few and far between. Garnier was just not feeling any of the pressure. And the way he finished, I think, was great. But Dos Santos, even with those last finishing strikes, it's like he almost quit on the feet before he even went down. He went no longer defending the strikes. It was bizarre. Yes. I just think, sad to say, I think he's done. I really do. I think he's done.
Yeah, it was. I thought Garnier looked impressive again, though. He's on a bit of a tear, Frenchman, and he deserves it because he just looks a very skillful heavyweight, not a kind of how can I say this without sounding like I'm criticizing, but like a lot of, we've talked about before, a lot of the heavyweights, they kind of look out of shape and they very much depend on their boxing. Like, he's an all-round fighter, like MMA fighter. He can do it all. He can kick, he can punch, but he can also grapple and wrestle, and that's what I want to see. So I like to see him picking up the victories. And then we had another very experienced fighter getting knocked out cold, and quite worrying afterwards. He looked out of it for a good 5 minutes as they were going to the decision. Kevin Holland defeated Jacare Souza via knockout about 1 minute 45 into the first round. It was a weird one. Well, this one was, wasn't it?
It was really weird, and Kevin Holland showed some nice grappling moves. He was actually attacking from his back on Ronaldo. Ronaldo's been knocked out before with unusual sort of position. I think he's been knocked out on top. Didn't he get caught with an up kick? I just can't think off the top of my head who it was with, but he caught. I think it was an up kick. Certainly when he had the top position and getting himself knocked out, but really unusual. It goes to show the explosivity of Holland for one, and the creativity, because he angled out to give himself the leverage in that punch from his back. It was clever the way he set it up, and really caught Souza out. And it was just weird the way he went out as well, because he was on his knees. He started falling backwards, and Kevin Holland jumped up and piston pumped a few more for good measure, and really put him out cold. But look, Jacare's now 41 years old. This is another guy that I think, if he stays in the sport, it's not going to be healthy for him. It's not doing anything for his legacy, because he's done great things for the sport, done great things in the BJJ. There's no need for him to be in there.
No.
Getting made to look like that against these younger guys.
Taking that damage, mate, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every time you get knocked out, it's damage.
And he's impressed me over the years, but I think it's time to hang those gloves up for him.
I agree, mate. I really do. I don't want to see guys who are 40 plus, whereby they're not just losing, but they're getting
Yeah, I'm getting a
really
lot of interference. Are you hearing that, by the way? That's
no,
better.
I'm not. No.
It just stopped.
Right, okay.
I'm getting a lot of interference here.
Yeah,
and
it might
I've
be
been
'cause
playing
my-
around.
It might be because my phone's close to the mic. I'll just move it.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's I don't want to see guys who are like 40 plus not just losing, but like getting knocked out cold and looking old.
Yeah.
And he did look old, and he did get knocked out cold. Kevin Holland, though, a good performance by him again.
Yeah, he's on a roll. He really is.
Next
He's
up
doing
was
great.
he is. Next up was Mackenzie Dern versus Vina Jandiroba, which was a unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. What did you think of Mackenzie Dern's performance, man?
In the first round, she looked really great with her striking. We know her grappling's world class, but she's not necessarily the best at getting it to the ground. So, she even though she was striking really, really well in that first round, she kept going for the clinch, trying to get the takedowns, but it wasn't happening for her. But it's almost like she gassed herself out a little bit, because in the second or third round, she was taking some deep breaths, and she just lost that extra pep that she had on her punches and kicks that she was showing in that first round. And it might be a little bit of the case that she's still new to acquiring these skills on her feet, regards her striking, but she's doing well with her striking. But I'm going to call it Werner, because I think it's easy for me to pronounce. Werner did great. I don't know. Is this her first time fighting in UFC? Can't remember whether we've ever covered her before.
Who's that? Vina Jandiroba.
Yeah, I'm not too sure that we've seen her before. But she held good form, and I actually wasn't so sure that Stern would win it. It was that close for me.
Yeah.
She cut and broke Dern's nose in the second round, I think it was. And Dern was put on her back as well. And although she created something right at the end of that second round, trying to spin up and over, she was on her back nevertheless. And the striking was left to be quite close. And I'll put it in Werner's favour for the fact that she broke her nose and cut her. And that third round was just all so close. It really was. But yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if the decision would have gone the other way. But yeah.
Okay. So she's 4-4, so that was her fourth fight in the UFC. She's 2-2 now. So we covered her earlier in the year. She fought Felice Herrig on the Miocic versus Cormier 3 card, but she might have been on the prelims, so we might not have gone into a lot of detail with it.
That might have been the case.
Next
up,
did
you, I just want to get your view on it. Did you think that was closer than?
I did about what it was, to be honest. But equally, I wouldn't have been like outraged if it had gone the other way either. It's kind of one of those. But yeah, I pretty much had it the same.
Okay.
But
yeah, it's close.
Like I say, I thought it was a very close fight, and yeah, it was good though. Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. Oh, this broke my heart. This did. But equally, I was also super excited because I really like Charles Oliveira. But like my Tony Ferguson fandom, I think it took a hit.
Yeah, Ferguson. Now I think it was a combination of Charles increasing his increment of improvement for one. I think it suits him being up at that heavier weight. Two, he's just on the up. And I think it's sad to say that Ferguson's is on the decline. He is in his mid-30s. He has been in some wars. His body's been through a lot with regards to surgeries and having all these injuries that he's had. But he did look a little punch shine, a little bit flinchy in the striking. That could be down to the fact that Charles is a good striker as well as a good grappler. But he just wasn't making good decisions on the feet and was getting outmaneuvered very, very quickly in the wrestling. And on the ground, he was getting checkmated time and time again. That armbar looked awful. It looked horrible, especially when he went under the armpit.
Yeah,
it's
there's
like,
no way that wasn't broken, mate.
Yeah,
gotta be.
Yeah, it was hard to watch. It really was, and it was sad to see.
He didn't throw anything with it after the rest of the fight either.
And, I know that Ferguson's been creative over the course of time. When he's been taken down, he rolls out of it, and pulls off these funky attacks off his back, but he wasn't doing the right type of things to try and escape. And when he was escaping positions, when he was able to try and get on top, he got himself put in the triangle. It was like he was always a step behind. He was literally jumping from one hot pan into a fire, and then from the fire onto hot coals. It was every decision that he was making just wasn't going anywhere. It was just getting him in further trouble. But well done to Charles. You know, I'm really excited to see what he can do. You know, this guy's going to work himself up to contender status without a doubt.
He did everything right, I thought. Did Oliveira, like every move that Ferguson did make, Oliveira just countered it straight away. Or he didn't even counter it, he'd already thought of it and he'd already positioned himself to counter it. I just thought he was exceptional, and it was like really exciting to watch someone come into the peak of their talents against a top level fighter who, you know, everyone thought had the best chance of beating Khabib, and he just got taken apart by Oliveira in every way. But then the other side of me, like I say, I'm a big fan of Tony Ferguson. I was really sad, like, because I just thought, Jesus, don't look the same fighter in the last 2-3 fights. I felt like he's just not looked the same. And that worries me because he's taken a lot of damage over the years because of the way he fights. So I do wonder, like, if it's starting to have a long-term effect on him.
Yeah, you got to wonder. I mean, there was just nothing close about that fight. The only success he had was when he was in the throes of being taken down. He cut Charles's eyebrow with the elbow. But yeah, it was disappointing and sad to see regards to Ferguson, but absolutely fantastic for Charles. You know, I really do like his style and the way he conducts himself. He's a good guy. What can you say? I just don't know what Ferguson's going to do from here on out.
Yeah, I got to say, I fully agree with what Brett said. So, like, since he was on Ultimate Fighter, he lost his first main UFC fight, Ferguson, against Michael Johnson via decision. Then since then, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He was on an 11 fight win streak until he fought Gaethje. He got taken apart by Gaethje earlier this year in May, and then in December has been taken apart in a very different way by Oliveira. To me, I agree with what Brett said. He needs to take some time because his if he hasn't broken his arm, I almost think like Tony Ferguson's mentality will be to get back in the cage by March, and try and get that win and get back into a run. But I always feel like his body, he just doesn't look the same. Let his body heal and get back to it later next year.
I see. I'm not so sure. I agree with it. Just quite simply of where he is in his career in terms of his age. He hasn't got. I think he's 35, 36.
Good check now. 36. Yeah. So I suppose he hasn't got.
He can't wait nearly a year to. It's just doesn't
but
work.
Even late 2021, like, do you know what I mean? Just like maybe like the fall of next year, or like.
But if he waits that long before he comes back and he does start performing well, he'll be looking at being 38 by the time he gets into any kind of contendership for any kind of titles. And I don't think
it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he should carry on motoring on if he wants to still have a shot and try and create momentum and fight someone a little bit further down the ranks.
I just don't know who you're fighting with now.
No, so, I don't know either.
I mean, he could fight the winner of McGregor and Poirier. Like, that's a ready-made fight because he's kind of fallen out with both of them at certain points. Dan Hooker, but if you're Tony Ferguson looking to get a win, I'm not sure Dan Hooker's not the guy. And then you've got Oliveira's just below him. He's just lost to him. Rafael Dos Anjos, Paul Felder. I mean, Al Iaquinta, Kevin Lee. These are all guys which
maybe Paul Felder, because Paul Felder's lost his last two as well, hasn't he? He lost to Hooker and
Yeah, he
then
lost the other
Santos.
week, didn't he?
Yeah,
He lost recently, and like he
yeah.
only took a short notice, didn't he?
I mean that could be a fight, but then again, whoever loses that fight, I really got to think about, is there
Yeah, they're
anywhere
both
else left to go?
36, aren't they?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
that would make sense as a matchup.
yeah, indeed. Main event: Figueiredo versus Moreno. The second time we've seen this fight, they fought to a majority draw. It was 46-47 for Figueiredo, 47-47, 47-47. What a fight, I gotta say.
What a fight! I mean, what a display of toughness, cardio, decision making, counter decision making. It had it all. It had striking in it, kicks and punches. It just had every variety of what MMA is all about. Um, the scramble ups as well were utterly impressive. Although they was getting each other down, they couldn't keep each other down. Everything was done on such a high level. It was a real treat to watch. And fair play to them. And Brett pointed it out. They fought not long ago, and they're jumping in again. I mean, wow, they're really going at it. Fantastic. That's definitely got to be run by again. That fight, definitely. Yeah, so hard to score some of those rounds as well, and that overall fight. I think a draw is pretty fair under the circumstance. Yeah, just run that back again. I mean, you could break that fight down round by round and talk about all sorts of technical things that were going on. It was super high level.
Yeah, it was
really,
so
really
good,
high
wasn't it?
level.
One thing I'd say is Moreno made Figueiredo look human this time around, and
He did.
like Figueiredo didn't look as unbeatable in this fight
Yeah,
as he
and
has done.
the first two rounds as well, Moreno was working purely off his lead side, off his left side. He was working mainly a deep jab, stepping in jab and getting loads of success with that, and also that lead kick to the head, and it's all off of his left side. He only started introducing his rear striking side late in round three, but it was really strange how he was just all off that lead side, and yeah,
Unbelievable.
that was a
It
little
was
bit
just
of a
so good.
yeah, it was, but they were so well matched. But Moreno's combinations for the takedowns, he was getting the double unders straight onto the hip. He wasn't working a high double unders. He was getting double unders in a way where it's straight on the waist, super quick. And it was getting him some lovely takedowns. But then Figueiredo was just doing incredible job of scrambling back to his feet and then straight on the offensive.
Yeah,
Wow, I mean,
it's the speed at which they do it. Couple of notes from last night's show. Dana White said he thinks that was the greatest fight in history, UFC fight in history. So here's a question for you: was this better than the female fight, which me and you said was one of the best fights we'd ever seen? I forget who it was now. It was the
Chinese girls.
lady versus.
Yeah, well, that was all on the feet. That was one of the greatest stand-up battles I think I've ever seen.
This was just
The
all
two
round.
females. This was great because it was so complete in its demonstration of MMA. You saw lots of grappling. We saw lots of wrestling, counter wrestling. We saw scramble ups, reversals. It really had a bit of everything. Yeah, it did.
Mate. It did indeed. So the bonuses of the night, fight of the night, no surprise that it was the main event. Performance of the night went to Kevin Holland and Rafael Fiziev for their finishes, which I think is a pretty good shout. Although I feel like Charles Oliveira not being involved in like any of those bonuses is
that's a bit sad because
big shout. Isn't it?
Ferguson, just not long ago was in a massive attention spot with regards to fighting Habib, and then Charles comes along and dominates him in the fashion that he did, and doesn't get in on any of those extra pay.
Yeah, it's
That's
difficult.
But
there we go, I suppose. So yeah, it was a good show. We'll have a look at next week's show in just a second. A couple of other little tidbits. Dana White has questioned the future of Ferguson and Junior Dos Santos, whether they should carry on or not. I think that's
Yeah, I think
fair.
he's absolutely right to question that. I would rather them not fight on. As much as I've been a huge fan of Ferguson, I just don't want to ruin my mind on how I've seen him and perceive him. I think it'd be sad for him to carry on and continue to lose, which is the worry.
And he's also trying to he's meeting with Khabib in 2 weeks, or meeting Khabib in a week or so or something.
Right.
And he thinks he's going to be able to talk about retirement.
Mhm.
You know, that's no surprise that he's going to try, isn't it? I mean, and he kind of just talked about just the mental strength of Tony Ferguson is just crazy. And he said he should have tapped for the armbar. And he said there is a 0% chance that we see Conor McGregor versus Jake Paul, which is, again, no surprise there. Okay, so let's have a quick little look at next week's events to finish us off. So, it was supposed to be Leroy Edwards and...
Yeah, so sad.
Gutted about that. I think I read somewhere it's going to be on the 20th of January or something. But yeah, gutted. I'd really been looking forward to that next week. So the main event next week: Steve Thompson versus Jeff Neal. You got there, mate.
That's difficult because Stephen Thomas, he's 37 now. He's not a young man, but he always seems to come in shape. But at what point do they fall off the cliff? So that worries me a little. But the fact that he's just got that elusive style, so he might well be able to control the pace and make it an issue regards deficit of tiredness. I am going to stick with Wonder Boy. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Thompson.
I'm going to go with Jeff Neal there. And we've got some good fights. Chaos Williams is back on next week, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. He's fighting Michelle Pereira. That's a big one for Chaos Williams. But Chaos Williams on the back of some impressive knockouts, maybe should get a bit more of a challenge, I think, from the Brazilian.
Yeah. That's going to be a good one.
Two young men, 26, 27.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting.
Greg
Hardy is also fighting. He's fighting Tibera. Now that is an interesting fight.
That is. I'm going to go Tibera on this one. Tibera. I think he performed really, really well. So I'm going to go him. I reckon he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think he's got the all-round skills that will trouble Greg Hardy. Anthony Pettis, Alex Moreno.
Oh. I'm going to go Pettis.
Yeah, it's a big old card next week. There's some big fights, and then co-main event: Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera.
I'm going to go Marlon Vera.
Yeah, me too. I don't see. I don't see Jose winning that one. Did you go with Chaos Williams or Michelle Pereira?
I'm going to go Chaos. I'm going to go Chaos.
I think that's all the big names. Diego Lima is fighting, which I think is what's his name, brother, isn't he? I believe.
Yeah.
But some big fights next week, mate, and we got a guest as well. Ben Ellis joining us next week, fresh off his Cage Warriors victory. So we'll have a little chat to him about that. But we've got the guests thick and fast over the next few weeks. But yeah, we'll be back next week, guys. Thanks for joining us. And Danny, as ever, it's a pleasure, my friend.
Yes. Looking forward to next week.
Spot on. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Spread the word. Follow the at Danny Batten Fight Show, Twitter and Instagram. I forgot what it was then. But we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
You